Okay, let's just jump right in. I am so glad you're joining us for this explainer today. We're going to be talking about something literally every single Dubai resident faces, right? Whether you've been here for a week or a decade, you know what I'm talking about, the intense summer climate. Now, as medical educators and family physicians at Westminster Multispecialty Clinic right here in Dubai Healthcare City, we get a front row seat to exactly how this extreme environment affects real people every single day. So we are going to break down the actual science of heat, humidity, and your health. We'll show you exactly what's happening inside your body, and more importantly, how you can prepare to not just survive the season, but actually thrive in it.
So tell me if this sounds familiar. Why are you already so tired? It's a question we hear constantly in our clinic rooms right around May. You know the feeling? Maybe you're dealing with fatigue that hits way earlier in the day than it used to. Or you're finding yourself desperately reaching for a third cup of coffee by noon. Maybe you're getting these weird headaches with no clear cause. Or you're waking up feeling like your sleep just wasn't restorative at all, even after a solid 8 hours in a dark, freezing room. It's incredibly frustrating. And honestly, so often patients come in completely blaming themselves. They think, oh, I'm just not managing my stress well. Or I guess I'm just getting older.
Well, the reality is it is definitely not just a busy week at work, and it is absolutely not a sign of physical weakness. It's the climate. What we see with our patients at Westminster Multispecialty Clinic is that these symptoms are actually early, very real signals. Your environment is placing an immense physical strain on your body. Think about it. When the outdoor temperature climbs past 38 degrees Celsius, your body is working incredibly hard behind the scenes just to keep your core temperature stable. To cool you down, your blood vessels dilate, sending a massive rush of blood flow straight to your skin. And what does that mean? It means your heart has to pump so much harder, and slightly less blood is actually circulating to your muscles and your brain. Your sweat rate shoots up, fluid loss accelerates, and all of a sudden your cardiovascular system is carrying a way heavier baseline load than it ever does in the winter months.
But of course, in Dubai, the raw heat is really only half the story. While the heat itself accelerates your fluid loss and pushes your heart, the humidity, well, it acts like a suffocating blanket. When that coastal air is super thick and saturated with moisture, your sweat simply cannot evaporate efficiently. And since sweat evaporation is your body's primary cooling mechanism, high humidity effectively jams your body's ability to cool off. It's literally like trying to air dry a soaking wet towel inside a steam room. It just doesn't work. As a result, the heat feels far more intense. That bone-deep fatigue sets in much faster, and your physical recovery time after just stepping outdoors takes substantially longer.
All of this intense environment leads us to a really fascinating but super challenging clinical concept, thermal shock. Basically, it's the physical strain of repeatedly transitioning between heavily air-conditioned interiors and extreme outdoor heat. Just think about the average Dubai daily routine. You walk out of a freezing 20-degree apartment right into the blazing 45-degree heat, step into a heavily air-conditioned car, and then into an icy office building. Your body, and particularly your respiratory system, has to manage these massive, violent temperature swings all day long. Actually, just last week we had a patient come in totally convinced they had caught a severe summer cold. But it wasn't a cold at all. It was airway inflammation triggered by this exact phenomenon. For our patients dealing with asthma or allergic rhinitis, this thermal shock is a major daily physical tax.
And that brings us to kind of a hidden trigger, rising mold spores. This is a clinical reality we see all the time as family doctors during the summer months. You see, when those superhuman conditions settle in outside, condensation naturally builds up inside air conditioning units in ductwork. That moisture, it creates a perfect breeding ground. And as a result, indoor mold spore counts actually rise. Your indoor air quality can deteriorate really rapidly, especially if your AC systems aren't perfectly maintained. So now, think about it. Not only is your body dealing with the physical stress of thermal shock, but you might also be continuously breathing in hidden allergens that just severely compound all those respiratory challenges.
Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is how our individual bodies handle all this stress. For most healthy adults, the cardiovascular system manages to adjust safely. It works harder, sure, but it copes. But that margin of safety narrows significantly for a patient on medication. Many really common medications actually alter your body's physiological ability to regulate temperature. Beta blockers, for example, slow down your heart rate, which directly limits how much blood can be pumped to the skin for cooling. Diuretics increase your fluid loss, pushing you toward dehydration way faster. Even common antihistamines and antidepressants can mess with your body's ability to sweat. Our team's approach at Westminster Multispecialty Clinic is to constantly remind patients that the rules of the summer completely change when your internal thermostat is being influenced by a daily prescription. Because of that altered thermostat, we strongly advise certain groups to get proactive attention before the peak season hits. If you are managing high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease, The extreme heat and rapid dehydration directly affect how you respond to your medication. Sometimes it can even cause your blood pressure to drop dangerously low. We also keep a very close eye on older adults, because their natural biological thirst response actually becomes less reliable over time. They often literally don't feel thirsty until they are already significantly dehydrated. Then, you've got young children, whose smaller bodies heat up much faster than adults and who can't always communicate their warning signs. And of course, anyone exercising or working outdoors. If you or a family member falls into any of these categories, we highly recommend getting specific, personalized medical guidance over just, winging it.
Okay, let's address the absolute elephant in the room, hydration. It is so much more nuanced than it sounds. We're all told the classic myth to just drink more plain water in the summer. And yeah, it's correct advice, but it's wildly incomplete. The clinical reality is that when you sweat, you aren't just losing water, you are losing crucial salts like sodium and potassium. If you drink massive volumes of plain water without adequate electrolyte intake, you actually dilute your body's remaining sodium levels. In a clinical setting, we call this hyponatremia. And get this, it can cause headaches, nausea, and cramping that closely mimic dehydration itself. It's this really tricky, dangerous cycle if you aren't replacing the actual salts you are actively sweating out.
Instead, we recommend what we call a smart hydration approach. At Westminster Multispecialty Clinic, this is the grounded, practical clinical advice we share every single day. First, focus on consistent water intake throughout the day. Sipping steadily is vastly superior to just chugging large amounts all at once. Second, pair that water with electrolyte-rich fruits and vegetables. Think watermelon, cucumbers, bananas. Third, gracefully reduce your caffeine and alcohol intake, as both have diuretic effects that work entirely against your hydration goals. And finally, and this is big, if you have a kidney condition, heart failure, or are on a fluid-restricted regimen, you absolutely need personalized guidance. Fluid needs vary wildly based on body weight, activity level, and medical history. Blanket recommendations simply do not work for everyone.
You also really need to understand that heat illness isn't just one sudden extreme event, it is a spectrum. On the mild end, you've got heavy sweating, weakness, and a rapid pulse. On the extreme medical emergency end, sure, it progresses to heat stroke, but what we see most often in our exam rooms is chronic, low-grade dehydration. People spend 4 entire months living at 90% capacity and they just assume it's the cost of doing business in Dubai. Please do not accept this constant brain fog, fatigue, and lethargy as your new normal. Living in a continuous state of mild dehydration can quietly impair your kidney function, destroy your daily concentration, and just completely drain your energy levels month after month.
So how do we actually tackle this actively? By making a few really considered decisions before the heat reaches its absolute peak. Acting now is infinitely better than waiting until you're dealing with a severe flare-up or a fainting spell in mid-July, right? Here are 4 clear, super non-overwhelming steps for proactive summer preparation. Step 1. Schedule a health and medication review now, before the weather fully turns. Step 2. Ask your doctor if your medication dose or timing needs a slight adjustment for the warmer weather. Step 3. Book those pediatric checkups to make sure the kids are in peak shape before that long school break begins. And Step 4. Monitor those early signs of fatigue or headaches. Please don't just dismiss them as ordinary tiredness. These are small individual decisions, sure, but cumulatively, they make a genuine, massive difference to how your next few months will feel.
And all of this brings us to a core philosophy that we hold very closely at our clinic. A family doctor who knows your personal medical history and understands exactly how Dubai's climate operates is far better placed to support you through the summer than a quick one-off walk-in clinic visit. There's a real tendency out there to treat summer health issues as just minor, seasonal inconveniences. But in a city where the environment is this extreme for several months, that framing just doesn't serve you well at all. Having continuity of care, a doctor who understands your baseline, who knows exactly what normal looks like for you, and who deeply understands how Dubai's specific climate affects your daily life, that is incredibly valuable. And that is exactly the confident, continuous partnership our experienced family physicians at Westminster Multispecialty Clinic provide.
Which kind of leaves us with one final vital question for you. Are you ready for the peak of summer, or are you just enduring it? You really don't have to just get through the Dubai summer feeling exhausted, drained, and perpetually behind the curve. You can actually get ahead of the season. If you have a concern you've been putting off, or you just want a clear, honest picture of your health before the intense heat really sets in, reach out to our team at Westminster Multispecialty Clinic. Let's build a lasting relationship with a trusted medical partner so you can thrive, not just survive. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, here's to a healthier, much more comfortable summer.